Good afternoon. Happy Saturday, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and today is Savage Saturday Comic Review, episode 58. And we are just going to jump right into it because this is one I was excited about. An issue I hadn't read before, so I got to read it all for the first time. Really liked it. Wanted to share it with you. It is, of course, written by one of my favorite old-time writers. I'll let you in on that in a second. But first, what we're going to do is just admire this Earl Norem cover. One of the best fantasy illustrators ever, in my opinion. Earl Norem was just amazing. And look, the cold of the breath coming off Conan, the army of the dead coming out of the ice and the snow at his feet. Just spectacular work. So this was a fun self-contained story. And we're going to show off some other art panels in here. There's going to be one in the back, but we're going to show you the inside one. Of course, the incomparable Ernie Chan. Look at that. What a beauty. Ernie Chan is just one of the all-time best in my opinion. And the story that we're talking about today is called The Army of the Dead. And it's illustrated by Gary Kwapisz, who was a serviceable Conan illustrator. Some of his art I really like a lot. Other times it looks a bit rushed and unfinished. This story was pretty good, so I was really happy with that. But the main reason I was excited to read this is it was written by Bill Mantlo, who was one of my all-time favorite writers. And, you know, Bill Mantlo was a co-creator of the White Tiger, first Hispanic superhero in Marvel, Rocket Raccoon, and he wrote the Micronauts, he wrote Rom, he wrote for the Incredible Hulk, Daredevil, and just he was all over Marvel before he was injured in that hit and run accident that left him forever needing to be in care, which was just so unfortunate. What a talent he was. And if Bill Mantlo has written it, just like Roy Thomas, I'll pick it up and I'll read it because he is one of my all-time favorite comic creators. Just Bill Mantlo was amazing. But like I said, he worked on all the big titles at Marvel. Most notably, the licensed properties, all like Rom and Micronauts. And, you know, he also, and his Daredevil run was pretty good. But without further ado, let's get into this. So we had that nice Ernie Chan art. And you get a great announcement page for the story. We're going to show that. Look at that. The Army of the Dead. Alright, good piece of art there by Gary Kwapisz. So, when the story starts out, Conan's traveling with his band of raiders. And they had just fought with a merchant caravan and made off with a bunch of goods. And now they're traveling through the snow and they're having a hard time of it. An avalanche happened, cut them off, and now they're starting to feel the effects of the environment they're in. So Conan's crew is starting to look really rough. Their horses are tired. They're tired. They haven't had enough food to sustain them. And their horses haven't been fed. And to make it worse, they're all weighed down with the treasure they took from the caravan. But they notice that Conan still looks fine. Conan's horse still has energy, and they call it out, and they say, and how is it that Conan stays strong and fresh when hunger has made us little more than stumbling shadows? And Conan, in his great fashion, says, your steeds would not have starved had you filled your saddlebags with grain instead of gold. Because Conan put treasure back, and he made sure he had provisions for himself and for his horse, knowing they had a long trek ahead of him. When everyone else that was in his company, all they cared about was riches. They didn't pack up on sustainables for them or their mounts. And when they tried to press Conan to get his food, he's like, no, you should have, provided for yourself, as I did. Your eyes are on the gold. in the jewels. Now you're suffering for it. That's not my issue. And so they do something stupid. They attack Conan because they're going to take his food and the food for his horse as well, the grains for his horse. And Conan's like, yeah, you're not getting it because then I'll be starving like you. And it's not my folly that you guys couldn't think past greed. So we get a couple pages of great battle where Conan's taking out this whole company of guys that he was traveling with. But when greed was involved, they wouldn't listen, and they're paying the price, and then they turn on Conan. And in the middle of the fight, another avalanche happens, and at this point, one of the raiders with Conan had slew Conan's horse, which made our favorite Sumerian even more pissed off and mad, and he was having none of it. But then the avalanche hit, and he barely escaped. We get a few good pages of Conan running from the avalanche, being buried by it momentarily at the end of it, and then emerging from the snow, still alive. But now he's got other problems, right? He's not, what he threw off his vestments once he was in battle. Now he's not covered for the cold, so he's shivering, he's cold, and he sees an outcropping, which isn't much of a shelter, but inside he doesn't notice that the outcropping actually hides an entrance. And Conan goes inside to find an army of the dead. And there is a curse upon them. That Conan is becoming entwined with. They are marching on a city of life, is what it's called, and they're in immortal battle with it. So they're trying to overtake this city of life. And we march upon the city of life, warrior, fallen now or miss the final battle. And this has been a battle that's been going on for quite a few years. And Conan says, I must be mad, hunger, and exposure to the cold that made me imagine this host are made of haunts and not of men. But they are of haunts. So Conan and this army come upon the city of life. City Conan's never seen before. And they do battle. Now, the reason that this League of the Dead are fighting the city of life is when they were alive, they were made promises, and we'll get to that in the story. But you can see the battle raging on, and as the city of life people die, they raise up and they join the horde of the dead army and become part of their. So it's only a matter of time before life is snuffed out in the city of life and everybody is part of this army of the dead. Inside, you see the king and queen together, and the king shoots a bolt into Conan. Luckily, it doesn't kill Conan. But before you see Conan down there, but before Conan is felled again, the queen orders to have Conan brought in and tended to, and they're trying to figure out why this man that's a regular man that's still alive is fighting with this army of the dead. And Conan explains that he just fell into them, that he had come the closest he'd ever come to death in that frozen wasteland with no garb to protect him, no food, and it was dire situation. And they were the first respite for him to try to survive. And as a warrior does, he worked up quite the appetite. So they feed him well, and Conan wastes no time in indulging and renourishing his body. But he's starting to ask what happened. So they're telling him that once there was a time when the City of Life was striving and they had no desire for anything, but then people from the outside world started hearing of it and marching on them. And so they employed this group of mercenaries to help protect them, saying that once, and the king and queen were just kids at this time, so this curse is being passed on to them. So the king at the time, the king and queen, the queen's father, made a sour deal. So the mercenaries that he had hired did the job well, and they fought off the invading armies of people that wanted to get into the city of Life. Now, the mercenaries that fought for them were promised a place there, but the king didn't like how the army was acting or changing their people. So he went back on the deal, and he tricked the mercenaries into coming out, and all the people that were fighting for them, the mercenaries, were then systematically killed in a giant horde by all the other denizens of this city and completely betrayed. But now, since they were killed, they rose up as the army of the dead, and until they get their rightful place in this city of light, this war will not end. Every dusk, the army of the dead comes back out, and they fight till dawn, claiming more lives. And as these citizens die, they become part of the army of the dead. Now, there's this one woman that kind of throws herself at Conan. And I'm sorry, I said the king and queen, the queen and the other regent, the guy, but he's not related to her. But the curse that's on them makes it so they can't have children. So they have a devious plan for Conan to breed with the queen and create new life in the City of Life, which is now losing life little by little by little. And so the night comes again. Another fight with the undead. More lives are lost, and the army of the dead grow. Conan starts speaking with the queen, and gets a little more about the sadness, how she feels stuck in this life that the fathers, the generation before, left them with this curse. So Conan leaves her, and now even the food is sour to him. Nothing's tasting right, and he's in his chambers, and he spots a pair of legs in there because he's starting to feel a little played, and he's starting to feel caged and trapped in this city. And the one thing Conan doesn't like is to feel like he doesn't have any options. So he gets her, he pulls her out, and he says, fine, he'll bet her and give her what she wants. To which she gets enraged. And you find out, that there's a little bit more to her than at first you thought. She's a better person than you would have gave her credit for. And she doesn't want that. She's going to actually help Conan sneak out. She's going to give him a mount. It's one that's strong enough to make it through these frozen wasteland mountains and get him to safety. She doesn't want to bring a child into this and pass the curse on to another generation of use. She wants it to be done. She doesn't care if the dead take over. At least the curse will end, and any children they have won't be stuck with this curse. She's thinking on a grander scale and of a viewpoint where she just doesn't want. Why would you want to have a kid and then curse your children with the curse that you're put down with, right? But the regent finds him out. He's mad. He goes a little crazy, starting to fight. And Conan's like, why would you want this? And the Regent makes a good argument with Conan. I mean, he's not evil. He just has his own viewpoint. And he says, even when you were near death, you joined with the army of the dead just at a chance of life. Nothing was making you give it up. So, yeah, death may be inevitable, but I'm going to prolong it as long as I can. I'm going to fight as long as there's fighting me. Conan can understand that. But the guy still attacks Conan. And the two are going at it. And the Regent pretty much wants to force Conan to start breeding and creating new life in this city. He goes after Conan, and the queen jumps in front and takes the blade. So now he's killed the person he didn't want to slay. And you can see the sadness there, but she rises up again. But now she is the queen of the dead army. And she still has her thoughts about her, and she tells Conan, you are not a part of this. We will open the gates for you. Take your horse and take your leave. And Conan takes her up on it, and he flees. But on the way out, he has got to fight through the army of the dead to gain his freedom, which he does. And then the last shot is of the city overtaken, and the queen and the regent ruling over a city of the dead now instead of a city of life. So a fun little tale with a great little conclusion. And, Conan's parting words were, eternal life was promised them, but death everlasting was all they claimed. So good little tale. Again, greatly written by Bill Mantlo. Really entertaining. Probably some of Gary Clapise's best Conan work, in my opinion. I really, really enjoyed it. A really fun one story, and I can see myself reading this one again. Really, really enjoyed it. So let's get to the back here. We got another great art panel by the one and only Ernie Chan. And one more in the back here inside the back cover. So overall, again, this is another A+ issue for me. I'm a big fan of Bill Mantlo. I know I've said it a few times, but it can't be underestimated how important Bill Mantlo was to Marvel back in the day and everything he did. And the way he took these, not just, when he would do an issue like this for Conan the Barbarian, but the licensed properties that he took hold of were things that they stuck him with that other people didn't want. And he sat there and made something successful out of them where someone else may have failed. He was great. So Bill Mantlo, great story. Gary Clapise, some of his best art he's done for Conan. And great Earl Norm cover. A+ issue all around. I thought the conclusion was fantastic. And wasn't so much Conan triumphing over the day, but just, Conan surviving in a place that's not meant for survival. And he didn't really defeat any enemies. He just made it through. And sometimes you just make it through. But great issue. And just absolutely loved it. So A+ all around for me. Interior art. Cover art. We'll give the interior art an A. The cover A+. The conclusion an A+. And the overall story an A. Just really good stuff by the whole team. Super enjoyable. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Savage Saturday Comic Review. And until next time, keep it casual.